This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And our main website where you can listen to the X-Zone 724-365, www.xzoneradiotv.com. X-Zone Nation, my first guest tonight is Dr. William Forstchen. We're going to be talking to the good doctor about his book entitled Day of Wrath. And first of all, Dr. Forstchen, welcome to the X-Zone.
It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, sir.
Well, gosh, I'm a history professor. I live up in the Smoky Mountains in Asheville, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I've written a number of books, and the most recent work is entitled Day of Wrath, which I started working on early this summer, presenting in novel form the potential threat that ISIS is now leveling against us. And Canada is now part of that, given what you endured last month with that terrible attack on your government.
Actually, there were two attacks last month. There was one at a military academy in Saint-Jean, Quebec, as well as the attack on Parliament Hill and at the Canadian War Memorial. Yeah, that's the day where Canada lost its innocence.
Absolutely, yes, and it was horrific to see, and such a close call for your PM as well. I mean, I believe the gunman got within feet of him before he was finally stopped.
That's right. What it did was it opened our eyes to the reality of terrorism in Canada. Mind you, Canada's not that naive or innocent when it comes to terrorism. During the FLQ crisis in the 60s, when the French wanted to the French separatists wanted to separate Quebec from Canada, there was the kidnapping of James Cross, from the British Commission Office here in Montreal, and as well as a Quebec cabinet minister, Pierre Laporte. Pierre Laporte was found dead in the trunk of his car just within a stone's throw of the Canadian Armed Forces base, St. Hubert. And, of course, the James Cross was eventually released. So, that should have been a prelude to what could happen. And I think that over the years, we thought that all these troubles and strifes, whether it was with the FLQ or other organizations that were operating in Canada, had come to rest. But nobody back then and over the years expected ISIS to come out of basically nowhere. So where did ISIS really come from?
ISIS is an offshoot of Al-Qaeda, and recall approximately a year and a half back where the President of the United States was looking at potential intervention into the civil war in Syria, which is maybe a bad analogy, but it's like trying to get into the middle of a cat fight with 5 different cats. And which one are you going to pull aside and side with? The various groups, including the still existing government in Syria, none of them are friends of us, of Canada, or anyone else. ISIS in fact, was viewed by Al-Qaeda as being too extreme.
Wow.
Al-Qaeda is now, should we say, our grandfather's form of terrorism. ISIS is a whole new generation beyond anything that Al-Qaeda ever attempted or could accomplish as compared to what we're now facing.
Do you think when President Obama went and gave Syria a red line to cross, Syria went to that red line, crossed it, and the president backed it down? Do you think that this was an opening for ISIS to say, ha, 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 we've got them?
What? Hey, let's go back to when we were all kids in the schoolyard and there was a schoolyard bully.
Mm-hmm.
If you drew the line and you said, oh, don't cross this, and he crossed it and you didn't react, you're just asking for trouble.
Exactly. So there we go. You and I are going to be talking over the next hour about your book entitled Day of Wrath. Please stand by, sir. You and I have to take our first 2-minute commercial break. Exo Nation, our guest this hour is Dr. William Forstchen. He holds a Ph.D. in history from Purdue University with specialization in military history. He is the author of over 40 books, of which several have been New York Times bestsellers. His groundbreaking novel, 1 Second After, published in 2009, is credited by many with helping to start the prepper movement by raising national awareness as to the potential threat of attack via electromagnetic pulse, which is also called an EMP strike. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as the X-Zone continues from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. 1-800-610-7035 worldwide toll-free. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My name is Rob McConnell. We'll be back on the other side of this 2-minute break. Don't go away.
Nita Hickok is an expert in exorcisms, psychic warfare, soul healing, angelology, soul retrieval, demonology, energy healing, long-distance healing, astral healing, and much more. Nita is an interfaith minister because she believes all gods and goddesses are valid and that they are part of one divine force that is incomprehensible to us who are incarnated upon this earth. Nita has been doing astral healing, distant healing, spirit release, exorcism, house cleansing and blessings, soul restoring and revival, psychic vampire removal and curse removal, and much more for over 40 years. For more information or to contact Nita Hickok, visit her website at www.astralhealer.com. That's www.astralhealer.com.
Do you think you have energy problems in your home? Do you feel better when you're away than when you're home? Joey Korn is a global leader in the world of dowsing who specializes in personal energy clearing and space clearing. He can help you create an ideal energy environment in your home no matter where you live in the world. Learn about his remote spiritual house cleaning services and much more at www.dowsers.com. You can get Joey's book, Dowsing, A Path to Enlightenment, as well as other dowsing books and tools, Kabbalah books, and Walter Russell books. Joey's work is really amazing. Go to dowsers.com right now. That's DOWSERS.com or call 1-877-DOWSING. That's 1-877-369-7464. Exo Nation, Dr. William Forstchen is our special guest this hour. He's the author of an exciting book entitled Day of Wrath. His website is www.dayofwrath.com. Tell me, Doctor, why a book of fiction about what is real when not only is it a real entity, but it's also a real-world threat at this very moment?
Well, I'll take it to June 28th. Recall that back in June, ISIS launched its offensive into Iraq, which was a stunning let's give the devil its due. It was a stunning military conquest. At the same time, within the United States, debate was really rising up by the lack of security, particularly along our southern border. And my fiancée and I were talking about this issue, and she's the one that tossed the challenge on me. She's actually made the comment, she said, I feel like God's kind of like knocking me on the side of the head to write about this.
Mm-hmm. I'd
already been doing research on it, and here is what I based the novel on. On September 1st, 2004, Islamic terrorists seized a school in Russia. Your listeners can look it up.
Yeah.
The Beslan Massacre. B as in boy, Beslan massacre, in which these terrorists seized a school in the Chechen province. They murdered over 300 children. ISIS has said it's going to bring the war to us. It's going to bring the war to Europe, Great Britain, Canada, United States. I take that threat seriously. Unlike Al-Qaeda, which want more for military and commercial targets,
mm-hmm.
ISIS is going to go for the soft targets, as it has already in a reign of terror in Iraq and Syria and against the Kurds. They are murderous thugs that make the Nazis look like a bunch of Quakers.
Wow.
And that pushed me into writing. Actually, it's a short book. It's only 46,000 words. It's technically a novella. I just felt this urgency to, in novel form, get it out there. So, in fact, what's happening at this very moment with you and I, that we're talking about this and you are raising awareness with your audience that there are real-world threats that we all have to face.
It's no secret that Al-Qaeda seems to be going after the younger generation. They're very technologically savvy. They're using the social media. They're producing broadcast quality videos. People in the United States and Canada are being drawn to join their ranks. What is the draw? Have we seen this before in history where terrorist organizations are able to infiltrate and get the youth of other countries to come and join their cause?
Not like we're now witnessing. I'm a pilot. What did I buy several years ago, the moment the product came out? A GoPro camera. Those little cameras I think that everybody who skis, snowboards,
sure.
or does any type of sport loves to record. Take a look at some of the ISIS video. I mean, go past what mainstream media is showing, dig a bit into the Internet. I even have a couple of links on my website, dayofwrathbook.com, and you will actually see murderous thugs inflicting terror, horror, and torture, and they're actually wearing GoPro cameras so they can do high-def filming of it. They then upload it. It goes into their center, in which it's been pointed out that one of their top technicians is a graduate from the university in Boston area in communications technology. They're churning out cutting-edge video, and it's working. It's working on several levels. One, recruiting the terrorists. Second, intimidating the populations in the area they already control. And third, conveying a message to the rest of us, we're going to do you next.
In your opinion, as a history expert, when we started going into the Middle East, specifically to go after ISIS, should we have gone in with both guns blazing?
Gosh, you are asking one heck of a tough question, because let's look at the Canadian perspective and the sacrifice that Canada made in World War I, which very few Americans are aware of. That is what your war memorial commemorates, and Canada was in that war for 4 years. Canada was in World War II for 6 years. We have to go back to World War I. What happened when the Turkish Empire collapsed, the Ottoman Empire? Diplomats drew lines on maps. So if we're going to go for a blame the West, which I rather disdain, there is one point there. When the Ottoman Empire was carved up during and after World War I, there was little understanding of the tensions and the hatreds between various groups, Sunni, Shiite, Kurd, Persian, Arab. We had little understanding of it. As we got involved in 1991 and again in 2003, very few people were really grasping the historical background of bitter conflict that dates back there well over 1,000 years. It stirred up a hornet's nest, but that also means we have a threat, but we have to face it. We just can't flagellate ourselves now and say we made a mistake. And in fact, we went in there for justified reasons, but it is a serious threat now. And we have little grasp of the methodology of warfare that has been used in the Middle East for 1,500 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 years. Let's go back into biblical history. We have little grasp of that, unfortunately.
So my question once again is, should we have gone in with both guns blazing?
If we were going to go in, we have to fight to win.
Yeah.
To fight a war with one hand tied behind your back is absurd.
Do you think that right now most Western nations are too politically correct and that this plays a major part in the stepped-back version of warfare that they're using?
Oh, my gosh. It's like you just throw me an underhand pitch with that one. Political correctness is going to be the death of us.
Yeah. So how do we change things, Doctor?
That's a pretty short answer, isn't it?
Well,
it's there. It's out in the open. Political correctness is going to kill us.
So how do we change all this, Doctor? Looking back in history, as you've done over the years, how do we change this? Like, we're seeing what's happening in Holland. We're seeing what's happening in the United Kingdom, France. And it seems that politicians are doing nothing to stop this. Sharia law is going to be a matter of fact. So how do we change all this? If these countries who are our allies seem to be oblivious to how to stop the growth of Islam, terrorist Islam, because not all Muslims are bad. How do we stop it?
Well, one of the questions that gets me pounding the table is, where is Western feminism in regards to Sharia law? How many Westerners truly know what Sharia law is? I teach at a small college. For example, I will actually show my students who sit their gate mouth Sharia lessons that you can find on YouTube. Why don't you just go on YouTube and look up how to beat your wife? There's an instructional video. How to beat your wife. Where's Western feminism for that? There is discussion about how young can your bride be. The Prophet took a bride at the age of 6. He consummated with her at the age of 9. In Canada and America, we call that pedophilia.
Yeah.
We call it rape. Where's Western feminism? We have to educate ourselves as to what Sharia law is and the threat it presents to Western civilization.
But once again, this is where political correctness steps in. So why do we...
multiculturalism mentality of all cultures are equal and we dare not judge another one. Well, I think it's time we started judging some of this.
I couldn't agree with you more. You know, I've got an old saying, and my audience has heard me say this from day one. Hey, if you don't like where the plane, you don't like the country that you landed in, where the plane landed, it takes off from as well.
But I'll add to that, on the day I see a Jewish synagogue, a Protestant church, and a Catholic church, and an Orthodox church in Mecca, and it's respected, then I'll start respecting back. But until then, there's no negotiating.
Here we are in Canada and the United States. We welcome everyone. We don't care if you're black, white, yellow, purple, green, blue, avocado, and we don't care what religion you are. We welcome you with open arms because both of our countries were founded and built by immigrants. And yet, the cultures that built our two great countries didn't try and kill us, didn't try and take us down the road to where we blow ourselves up because at the end of the road, when you blow yourself up, you're going to end up with 69 virgins. So where do we draw the line as a society and say we will not tolerate this?
We've let that line get past us. That line is over the horizon and all but invisible now. We have to pull it back. So you point out the whole thing of virgins and Sharia law and the Quran. How many Westerners know it's in the Quran? There's a slave market. in heaven. That's actual slave market that besides your 72 girlfriends, it actually states you can go there with your ancestors, your fathers and grandfathers, and choose any woman you desire. Or the line that a lot of people try to dodge around, beautiful boys adorned in diamonds. Now, is that a vision of heaven where a woman is nothing more than a slave to be purchased and, in fact, can be eliminated, destroyed? She doesn't even really have a soul. Again, where's Western feminism? Where is political correctness taking us? When are we going to stand up and say, not in our country? This is not what Canada was founded on. This is not what America was founded on. And America fought a bitter civil war that cost almost 700,000 lives to put slavery in its grave.
Yep. I want to know who decided that we would become politically correct, because nobody asked me to vote on it.
Well, as an American, I point out, I don't see anything in the Constitution that says that there's a constitutional protection against being offended.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a free society, we're going to lose it. We are losing it if we continue to allow this to expand. And ISIS is just the beginning. We have to face the fact we're going to be facing this for decades.
Doctor, stand by.
When are we going to stand up?
I'm sorry, sir. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exo Nation, Dr. William Force Chen is our guest. He holds a PhD in history from Purdue University in military history. His website is www.dayofwrathbook.com. That's www.dayofwrathbook.com. And the good doctor and I return on the other side of this news break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. What if someone told you you could live to be 120? Would you believe him? What if he told you the Bible guaranteed it? All you needed to do was follow his rules and buy his products. Would you do it? What if you invested 20 years of your life in him? What if he tested his substances on your child? What if your child became brain damaged as a result? Meet Dr. Tyler Belknap, a fast-talking Texas admin turned health guru. At the helm of a vast health food and supplement empire, he has established himself as the authority on nutrition and longevity. But what his followers don't know is that his products are laced with bizarre psychoactive substances from genetically modified plants developed in his very own secret lab. No wonder his customers can't stop using them. Tyler Belknap will stop at nothing to keep his edge in the market, even if it means experimenting on children. Chasing 120, a story of food, faith, fraud, and the pursuit of longevity, a novel from the pen of political cartoonist Monty Wolverton, is an easy and entertaining read full of rich characters and intrigue. It hits home in a world filled with all kind of hucksterism and offers a glimpse of what can happen when GMO technology falls into the wrong hands. Chasing 120 by Monty Wolverton. Get your copy today at www.ptm.org/120 or on Amazon.com. The ability to access the knowledge of the universe is much easier for us to access than we may believe. Brad Johnson, conscious matrix communicator, is one of these unique individuals who is able to access a strong connection to the universal mind. Through his connection, Brad has assisted thousands of clients from all over the world through natural intuitive assistance. The intuitive information received is vast, covering a wide range of subjects. Brad's innate ability includes being able to access one's own universal matrix to help them realize their potential to create a life of profound greatness. One-on-one private sessions with Brad Johnson are available to anyone from around the world. Brad is also a proficiently trained psychic, Akashic Records reader, an online spiritual teacher, founder of his own unique and powerful healing system, Body Regeneration Healing, as well as a professional conscious channeler in communication with his own higher self-consciousness known as Adronis. For more information or to book a service appointment with Brad Johnson, visit his website at www.consciousmatrix.com. That's www.consciousmatrix.com. Welcome back, everyone. Dr. William Forstchen is our guest. He holds a PhD in history from Purdue University with a specialization in military history. He is the author of over 40 books, of which several have been New York Times bestsellers. His groundbreaking novel, 1 Second After, published in 2009, is credited by many with helping to start the prepper movement by raising national awareness as to the potential threat of the attack via electromagnetic pulse. He, along with other experts on terrorism and the military situation in the Middle East, firmly believes that it is time America took serious note of the threats leveled by ISIS, and I couldn't agree with him more. Bill, thanks very much for joining us. Great pleasure talking to you. Now, you and I, during the commercial break, were talking about a video. Tell our listeners about this.
Well, let me toss a question to you.
Sure.
Are you a parent?
I certainly am. I'm
Do you
also
remember having to endure? How old are your kids now?
Well, let's see. My youngest is 24.
Well, then maybe mine's 21.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall having to sit through Barney?
I love you, you love me. Oh,
and we would sit there and mutter things. But
oh yeah.
realized that when our children were 3 and 4, Barney was a real character,
Yep.
a real friend, was very much part of their lives, and we, as loving parents, endured it. In the Middle East, they have Barney characters, and I urge your audience to look them up on YouTube. Farfour, starts with an F, Sarfour, or Nahul. These are Barney characters. In one episode, Farfour is beaten to death by an Israeli intelligence agent who's trying to steal his land. And then the child host of the program implores the children to get revenge and go out and start killing Jews. Now, when that is being inculcated into 3- and 4-year-old children by state-run, I must emphasize, state-run television programs in the Middle East, what are they like when they're 16, 18, 21? They're taught to hate from the day they're born.
It's brainwashing.
Imagine if we were sitting with our child and somebody comes in and beats Barney to death with a baseball bat, and our child's hysterical, and then the host of the show is saying, okay, go out and kill the people who did this. Is that not burned into our child's heart?
It certainly is. Mind you,
you
you and I would not put up with that.
Well, it would be like, what the blank is going on here?
Yep.
This is a sickness. And then, of course, realize, as you're in media and so am I, the hundreds of adults that are standing behind the camera, standing in the editing room, standing in the broadcast studios. They are training their children from the very beginning to hate and to kill. I watched a training video this summer put out by ISIS of a 10-year-old child sawing. Let's not use the word decapitate anymore. That conjures images of the samurai, etc. They saw people's heads off with knives while the person is screaming and begging. I watched a video of a 10-year-old boy while the adults are standing around and laughing and cheering him on as he saws a man's head off. What kind of world is that?
A very sick one. A very sick and demented one. And what really ticks me off is that we, as members of this world, are allowing this to go on. It seems that those who have the ability and who make the decisions, who have the authority to say, let's strike, let's get it over with once and for all, we're not going to put up with this anymore, are just sitting back and saying, well, you know, this really isn't the right thing to do. We shouldn't put our boots down. We'll just get a coalition together, and you know what? It'll make the world feel better. Well, it doesn't, gang. We see through the smoke screen.
Well, let's go to a moment of shared Canadian-American history. Most Americans seem to think that D-Day was about two beaches, Utah and Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a Canadian beach, and there were two British Empire beaches. Imagine if on the end of that day of days, in which 12,000 Canadian, American, British, and Free French troops were killed or wounded, at the end of that day, people recoiled, just, oh, this price is too terrible. We should negotiate with Hitler.
Yeah.
We can find a way to get along with him. Is that not what we're doing today at this very moment?
Exactly. That's exactly what we're doing. What we're doing is we're trying to teach, and please, if this sounds a little rough, I'm sorry, but this is coming from the heart. If there are societies who cannot be, if they cannot live in a democracy, then I don't see why we should keep on trying to change their way. As long as they stay in their side of the yard, mind their own business, that's one thing, but they don't. They want to keep progressing around the world. And correct me if I'm wrong, the main goal is global domination.
Yes. You know, we're afraid to say that. That sounds like something out of a bad sci-fi movie today. Oh, I'm going to global domination. Recall a madman writing a book called Mein Kampf,
Yep.
in which that's the exact program he laid out. Or in the Pacific, Japanese imperialists. We will completely control the Pacific Basin. And a so-called war of liberation, but what the Japanese did in China rivals, perhaps even exceeds what happened with Hitler in Europe. Come on. We got to wake up. This is precisely what ISIS is saying. We are going to kill all of you, and then you will either submit or you will convert or you will die. We will take your daughters. We will take your sons. We will use them for our sexual pleasure. And, in fact, rape is part of their program because it's not a sin if you're a jihadist. It's actually considered an act of conquest. When are we going to face these things?
Let me ask you something. It seems that the entire that most of the information that we're getting about this specific brand of terrorism is based on sex. Sexual slaves, sex this, sex that. Are they a bunch of sex perverts? Are they sexually inadequate?
Oh.
Like, what's the story behind the story, Doctor?
Okay, polygamy. I'm 64 years old. I teach college. I teach kids 18 to 21. They're the age of my daughter now. They're kids.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a culture wherein I, being wealthy and of the right class, in my 50s and 60s, can take this really gets creepy, doesn't it? 8, 10, 12, 14-year-old girls and take them as my 12th, my 14th sexual partner, my wife. And then what about all the young men in my school who are then marginalized off? They will never have a healthy relationship with anybody. I say to them, hey, I know a way you can get 72 girls. We'll always be virgins. There's a really perverted obsession with that. Go out and kill an infidel. And if you die in the process, you'll get rewarded. Meanwhile, I'll continue to have all the women I want here. There's news today that the Caliph's wife and son were captured.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to have the same emotional impact on him that it would have on you or me?
Of course not.
No, it's just another one.
Yep.
I mean, if anybody ever did anything to my fiancée or my daughter, I would be berserk. I'd be out of my head. Women are they're not even second class. They're subhuman in this culture. And again, where's Western feminism, but also where's any healthy man whose prime directive in life is to be protective of those whom he loves?
Here's a better question.
It doesn't seem to exist there.
Where's the United Nations and all this goodness and all this?
The penthouse?
Come on, guys. I was watching something on the United Nations today, and all the different crimes against humanity, all the mass murders that are going on in different places of the world, and they were talking about Africa and the different tribal massacres that are going on, and the reporter asked one of the members of the genocide committee, there's actually a genocide committee in the United Nations. And he said, well, basically what they are is a group that come up with different policies that are to be adhered to by members of the UN. But there's no way of enforcing these policies. So my question is, why have these people in New York City just sitting around making policies that are not going to be enforced?
Well, let's consider a wonderful Nobel Peace Prize winner. His name just walked out of my head of the PLO, who walked into the UN and pulled a pistol out while he was speaking. Yeah, Yasser Arafat.
Yeah.
Remember? And he got the Nobel Peace Prize, which shows us how much a Nobel Peace Prize is worth these days.
Well, no offense, but President Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize as well. So
yeah, so did the Al Gore. We're not going to go anywhere near that.
Not this hour anyway.
That whole thing about your patriotism starts at the border. So I'm not going to make any more sarcastic comments about a president and vice president who hold Nobel Peace Prizes. Yeah.
Hey, listen, we've only had one female prime minister here in Canada, and she only lasted 6 months, and her name was Campbell. So, listen, we all have had our little crosses.
I'm thinking of the one I really respect, and that was Maggie Thatcher. And that incredible triumvirate of her and Reagan and Pope John Paul II.
The Iron Lady.
Communism.
Yep.
Absolutely. I knew a lieutenant colonel who got drunk with her one night. He said she drank him under the table. It was at a regimental mess.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. But I don't understand why they treat women like second-class citizens, not even second-class citizens. I think when it comes down to the way they treat women, it's deplorable. And yet women on this side are appalled by it, yet they don't do anything.
It's not politically correct to criticize another culture. I will criticize within my own borders here. When the head of the DNC a couple of months ago was talking about how Republicans are pulling women by the hair and slapping them in the face and pushing them to the back. And I was like, lady, where's your comments about ISIS? It's not about pulling them back by the hair. It's about stoning them to death. And I've mentioned several different videos tonight. If you look up on YouTube, I believe the title is She's Buried Chest Deep. And that might not be the title, but just look up Buried Chest Deep. It's on YouTube. If you can sit through that without weeping, you have to be made of something far stronger than I am. It is about women being stoned to death in Iran and Afghanistan and elsewhere. It's grim.
What, in your opinion, Doctor, would be the result of Sharia law being acknowledged outside of the Islamic states?
I would rather die fighting it than to see the women I love in my life ever, even remotely submitting to that, and my blood pressure has just gone up 20 points just thinking about it. I can't comprehend how any man could tolerate Sharia law.
But are they men, or are they cowards with guns?
Yes, they're worse than cowards with guns. And, okay, you've pushed me to the edge. I see this as satanic. It is absolutely satanic what is being done. There's no other word for it.
Well, you know what? I was taught by a very special lady in my life. God bless her. She's still 85. She's still with us, and she's 86 years of age now. She said, Robbie, if it's good enough to think, it's good enough to say, but just be ready to stand behind your words. And I agree with you. Yeah. This is satanic. You know, it makes you think, are we in the final days as talked about in the Bible, the book of Revelations? Is the false prophet that the Bible talked about Muhammad?
Yes. One-word answer, yes. And let me throw one other thing in here. When we were in the Cold War standoff in the 50s and 60s, I can actually say, thank God we were facing what was supposedly an atheistic society that wanted to inherit a material world, even if half of it was a smoking room. Organizations like ISIS are bent on ultimate destruction for bringing about what they see as the final days. So this is an apocalyptic movement. There is no room for compromise with this. Their vision of the future is kill all of us, and that brings around the end time. And also the 72 girls who will remain forever virgin and not polluted by anyone else.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Rape of Christian and Jewish women is just part of the game.
Why is it, sir, that so many people, so many nationalities, so many ethnic societies hate the Jews? What have they done wrong?
It's because of a culture that embraces education, embraces respect, embraces success, and therefore triggers hatred and envy, simply because they are a fascinatingly unique culture. My mentor in graduate school was German Jewish. And talking about his growing up in the 20s, he said, I was the type of Jew that you Christians call, the Christmas Christian. You go to church once a year or twice a year. He said, until I was 12 and 13, I called myself German. Until one day in school, somebody called me a dirty kite. And that's a terrible word, but
yes, it is.
That's the term. And he said, suddenly, I'm being told I'm no longer German. I'm something different. Fortunately for him, his parents saw the handwriting on the wall, literally, and they got out one step ahead of Hitler. And he wound up as a commando in the British Army in World War II and fought in the Israeli War of Independence. What is the only sane, stable, safe state in the Middle East? It's Israel.
Doctor, stand by. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. It's great having you with us. Congratulations on your book, and congratulations on what you're doing. Exonation, our guest this hour is Dr. William Forstchen. He is the author of Day of Wrath. His website is www.dayofwrathbook.com. The good doctor and I return on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Hi, this is Rob McConnell, just letting you know that the X-Chronicles newspaper is now available online at www.xzonebookclub.com. All past editions and current editions of the X-Chronicles newspaper are available for 99 cents. That's www.xzonebookclub.com, and that's 99 cents U.S. per edition. And don't forget, the X-Zone store is now open as well for all of your X-Zone Nation merchandise. www.thexzonestore.com. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Yeah, I know. I just kind of tell it like it is. I've often said that, Muhammad must be the false prophet. Because none of the prophets that I've ever read about would kind of teach and promote the horror that is being talked about and that we're witnessing under ISIS and under Sharia law. But let me ask you this question, Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Is this what it actually teaches? Is this what the Quran actually teaches? Or is this something that has been put into the Quran since the time of the original writing of the Quran? What was it, 20 years or 200 years after Muhammad died?
The Quran is a very cryptic book. In Judeo-Christian tradition,
Mm-hmm.
our sacred texts are linear. We start with Genesis, we end with Revelations, and it follows a linear progression. The actual Quran is designed in part on lengths of what are called, their chapters, but they're not in linear progression. So defenders will say, well, gee, notice in this one he says we should all live at peace.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, his later pronunciations were the ones that were saying go out and kill them all. The massacre of the 800 Jews in the one community, his statements about kill them all. Also, you have to go to the Hadiths, Hadith. The Hadiths are the teachings based on the Quran. That's when you really get into some of the very creepy interpretations. If you simply Googled up Hadith
Right.
and then sexual law, you will feel like you have to take a shower after about a half hour.
But if these are interpretations, sir, whose interpretations are they? Are they the interpretations as Muhammad wanted his followers to understand them, or are these the interpretations of warped mind who want to use the Quran for their own sexual and devious means?
If you go into the Quran and some of the surahs, it's just flat out there.
Really? Wow.
72 virgins, boys adorned in diamonds, and it's fascinating how if you get to a Western translation, they'll put in parentheses as your waiter.
Well,
Like you've gone into an Applebee's and there's your waiter. He's adorned in diamonds.
Well, I've got to tell you something, sir. I've got one wife, and at times that's way too much for me to handle. So I can't even fathom 3, 4, let alone 72.
Think of the brutality that creates. Think of the rivalries, the hatreds.
Yep.
It's an impossible thing for us to grasp. I mean, polygamy of 3,000 years ago was based on the fact that most males were dead by the time that they were 21 because they were killed in battle.
Mm-hmm. And I remember as a child hearing these stories, Aladdin and from that part of the world where the sheik had so many wives. And at one time, you're like, that was wow. But when you grow up and you realize,
whoa,
it's like, oh no, this is not good. Why do we tell our kids these stories? Like, oh my God, quick. Anyway,
we realize as well that every single, let's say he has 500 wives, that means there's 499 males who will never have a normal, intimate, loving relationship with a woman turns to hatred and turns to killing.
And not only that, but they also turn to the local slave market to buy their women.
Exactly. And that's all women become.
Doctor, I want to thank you ever so much for being with us. Do me a favor, come back again and spend another hour with us.
God bless Canada, and thank you very much.
Sir, the pleasure has been all ours. Continued success, Doctor, and to you and your fiancé, number one, congratulations. And number two, the very best of the season to you both.
Thank you.
Goodbye, sir. Exonation, our guest this hour has been Dr. William Forstchen. He's the author of Day of Wrath, and his website is www.dayofwrathbook.com. It's available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and all fine books online and brick and mortar everywhere. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Don't go away.